At least 2 to 3 trillion. And everybody in the Obama administration is afraid to come forward and say, we want 2 trillion or 3 trillion.
And by the way, that's what Larry Summers is coming out and saying from the White House. He's saying we need trillions more. That's in the news today.
Absolutely. Well, that's very interesting. I think that the dam is breaking on this question. See, for the average person, the big issue is, what caused the depression? Why is there a depression? Why should there be a depression? What has changed? Well, the big difference is we have 1.5 quadrillion of derivatives. The leverage on that used to be positive, which meant super profits at the apex of the pyramid.
Yeah, they built Ponzi schemes, and now they've imploded, and if they can get us to sign on, they'll take over. But if they don't, it'll come out, they wreck the economy, and they all go to prison. I had Ron Paul calling for their indictments of these bank heads earlier in the show, so you're absolutely right.
Well, it's going to take something more, and this is what I recommend. When it comes to derivatives, there's only one policy. Wipe them out. Destroy them. Shred them. Delete them. Burn them. Make them into wallpaper.
Freeze them. Freeze them is the best.
Well, I think you've got to get them out of the universe, and that's the problem with this guy Smith, is he realizes that derivatives are a black hole, but you can't.
And they won't even ban. They won't even. I've had top economist on the last 2 weeks. They won't even ban naked short selling.
Well, that may be coming, but anyway, that doesn't stop us. Our demand has to be, and this is really a matter of economic science. If you want to get out of the depression, there's only one way to do it, and it's got to be done by government because nobody else can do it. Ban derivatives. Derivatives were illegal from 1936 and the New Deal until 1982 when Reagan came in under the influence of Milton Friedman and the rest of these people. Derivatives were illegal. And from 1982 until 1993, they were of very, very dubious legality. Nobody was willing to buy them because there was still this idea that they might be illegal.
But then they used AIG to AAA certify them as an insurance company, and so they labeled literal buckets of crap as gold.
Right, and this was done in 1993. It's Wendy Graham, the wife of Phil Graham. She came in and said, I'm going to make a safe haven for derivatives. She was backed up by Bob Rubin of Goldman Sachs, by Summers, the same guy that we have today.
Arrest them all.
And also by Greenspan, of course. And then
Arrest him.
Phil Graham of Texas came in at the end of the 90s with a law that was signed by Clinton guaranteeing that derivatives were hunky-dory. And that's basically how...
But even under the laws they changed, they violated federal laws and international laws tens of thousands of times. That's on record. They didn't even follow their own scam rules, and that's why we should have state grand juries move for their indictments.
Well, again, you can put all these people in jail, but you've got to get rid of 1.5 quadrillion of derivatives. The U.S. part is about a quadrillion.
Well, Webster, we have to put them in jail. We have to put them in jail because they're going to expand us into an even bigger Ponzi scheme of world government for and by the bankers if we don't identify them as the crooks.
I'm all for it, but you've got to destroy the derivatives. The re-regulation of markets is what you need, and that means wipe out derivatives. In other words, not just re-regulate looking forward, but re-regulate looking backward and declare that all of this stuff goes into the shredder. It gets deleted. You press the delete button, and 1.5 quadrillion of derivatives.
Because there's no way, as you and other economists and historians have proven, no way to fix this. It's a black hole that will consume everything. Look, we did the banker bailout bill. We did all this. And look, it only gets worse. The stock market's still plunging.
This is why they say, how come Obama doesn't come forward with a solution for the banks? Well, there is no solution for the banks unless you destroy derivatives. That's the whole thing hinges on derivatives. And this has become more and more obvious to people. How come Paulson had to revamp the TARP from the first TARP to what it then became? How come Geithner can't give you any details? Why are they waiting week after week, day after day? Citibank is now hovering at about $1 a share. There's a little bit of a pop today, but I don't even think it'll last the day. AIG is 38 cents a share. This is all derivatives. There's an article today in McClatchy, very interesting, that if you take the 5 top banks, Citibank, JP Morgan, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo, they have more than enough derivatives losses to wipe out their entire capital base, meaning those are all zombie banks. Now, it's quite obvious. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, under this crazy Sheila Bair, they have to seize those banks. Banks are seized in the United States basically every Friday now, but mostly they're little banks in out-of-the-way places. This time around, the big money-setter banks, the big 5, have got to be seized and put through Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and in the process wipe out the derivatives. Those 5 banks represent 95% of the entire derivatives bubble on the U.S. side. So that would be a way to begin.
And then once we arrest their directors, we can bring them into court and find out the full extent of the Ponzi schemes and then arrest all the rest of them.
Absolutely. There's no way around it.
We could wake up next week and arrest all these people, and the New World Order could end, folks, but the churches are telling you it's impossible, it's of God, it's going to happen. That is mind control. You have to believe we can beat them because we don't have any other hope but to have these people through due process arrested, seized immediately, seize the criminals. Let's go back to Webster Tarpley. Webster, you're going over the economy. I agree with you about what's happening. Please continue. It's good to see Obama's approval rating dropping between 15 and 20 points. In his first couple hundred days trying to ram everything through, it looks like things are going well. We're still in dire situation, exposing him. People, got to intensify their operation to expose it?
Yes, and I think it's wonderful that you're taking the lead with the Obama deception. It goes right to the heart of Obama. With Bush, of course, you were dealing with a pretty open reactionary, right? He would go around and say things like "Bring it on" and "Wanted, dead or alive" and so forth. Obama's a completely different proposition, and as you point out, it's deception, dissembling deception, duping people. The guy is slippery, slimy, he's evasive. So the question of deception, I think, is really critical, and it sounds to me like you've assembled a number of voices in the Obama deception. Which
you haven't seen it yet, but you're the number one voice in the film. Gerald Celente, George Humphrey, KRS-One, Professor Griff, myself, but it's really Obama showing him say one thing and then a year later doing the opposite, saying he's shutting down camps when he actually was expanding it. I mean, it's going to be devastating to him.
Today, Obama wants to bust the teachers' union. He just came out with a big thing for merit pay. It's the equivalent of piecework, right? If you ever worked in a factory with piecework, you know how difficult that is. Obama wants to have the equivalent of piecework for teachers. It's a way to bust the American Federation of Teachers. Poor dupes. They supported him. He's going to stab them in the back. Obama says he wants to help people who are going to get foreclosed on. His answer to that is to increase payments to these predators like Mozillo, right? The Mozillo types at Countrywide. The predatory lenders are going to get the money, and maybe somebody might get helped. But that's not the main idea. The main idea is to prop up those guys. So it's all deception with Obama. And the main thing, of course, is he's owned by Goldman Sachs, Soros, David Rockefeller, Trilateral Commission. The foreign policy is a more sophisticated version of imperialism that depends on playing other countries one against the other. Right now, they're trying to play Russia against Iran. They're trying to get Russia to become the leading edge of a U.S. Assault on Iran, really, with the idea that what's going to come out of that is conflict between Iran and Russia, with the U.S. holding back. And
well, expanding on that, George Soros at the Davis Forum 3 weeks ago, you may have seen the video, admits they're lowering oil prices as a weapon against Russia, Venezuela, the Middle East to accelerate the world depression.
Yes, I'm sure that he would say that. I think the collapse of oil prices has got a number of things going on, right? Some of that is hedge funds approaching bankruptcy. They go into a liquidation mode and dump their speculative positions. The other thing, of course, is that demand is shrinking as the depression hits. But certainly, they're trying to turn that against Russia. So that goes on. Also with Sudan, look, the biggest country in Africa. Right now, you've got this awful woman, Susan Rice, at the United Nations.
AFRICOM, they're moving U.S. forces into Africa right now, and they've got a black face to do it.
Yeah, and Sudan is this huge country. I mean, I've actually been there, and you fly from northern Sudan to southern Sudan. You're going for hours and hours and hours. It's huge, and it's the key to Africa in many ways. And they're sending China about 6, 7, 8% of Chinese oil. And the goal now is they've declared the president an outlaw, right? Bashir, they want to make him into a
yeah, we now have the UN, and they made it liberal cause celeb to do this. We're not saying the guy's perfect. The point is, they've made he's the first sitting president that the UN has indicted.
And that they have a proposal for a no-fly zone over Sudan, which would simply mean that the U.S. Air Force would then try to shoot down all flights over Sudan. Now, that's a wonderful thing. Let's bring war to another continent. Let's have Africa in flames in addition to the Middle East inflation.
And the vector point is Sudan. For the Northcom invasion, U.S. forces massing all over the continent of Africa, with smiling Obama leading the way. Stay there, Webster Tarpley. We'll come back and continue with the real agenda and the Obama deception at Infowars.com.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?